Today's episode is brought to you by Modern Grower. Modern Grower is your source for time and labor-saving farm tools, such as the Paper Pot Transplanter, Quick Click Seeder, and the Jang Direct Seeder. Turn laborsome tasks into free time with tools by Modern Grower.
What do you think is sort of the impetus behind this sort of shift toward herbal things, edible flowers, all the things that I would sort of lump into that category?
I think that it's a niche that there is still room to expand in. There's at the farmer's market, everybody's got tomatoes. There's, a whole bunch of different people selling lettuce. It's not a problem to have multiple farms selling multiple of the same types of vegetables, but very rarely do you see people selling herbs. Sometimes some farmers are dabbling in herbs, which is really cool, mostly like the culinary herbs. But to have some locally grown herbal teas, some of the like specialty body products and facial oils and serums and salves and all that stuff to actually be farmer grown and not just handmade. It's kind of like the next step, right? Like we're not using plants that are imported from overseas. It's all part of the growing movement for eating local. I think we're realizing like, it goes beyond just your lettuce as well. Like what's in your tea bag? Where did that come from? And can we get local with that? So it was a niche that I saw open to explore. There weren't a ton of people doing it. And, being kind of a plant nerd and into I've been into herbalism for a while, and it just kind of seemed like a natural thing. If I was going to start something, at first it was just like, a small thing on the side, and then it's kind of turned into my whole thing. That's kind of how I fell into herbs, I guess.
Yeah, I think that there is like I said, a sort of a tide turning, not to where everybody's going to do it, but I'm seeing more and more. I was like one of the first farms at our market to start selling edible flowers. And there was another farm there who sells edible flowers, but they mostly sell to restaurants. And as far as I can tell, it wasn't really until I sort of stuck my neck out there and tried moving them, mostly because the sales outlet that I initially had for them, I was no longer working with. And so I'm like, I've got to move all of these flowers some way. And so like, let's just try at the market and just see. And sure enough, they were a hit. And now, one of the other farms is doing it. And like I said, I'm sort of, I wouldn't say I have the corner on culinary herbs, but I definitely have like the most variety, wherever, maybe there's 3 or 4 of us that have basil. I'm the only one with rosemary. I'm the only one that's really bringing any sort of mint or, sweet marjoram, oregano, lemon balm, anise hyssop, all the different things that I'm growing, just sort of bringing a little bit of everything. And it's been less about like, oh man, I'm moving, 4 pounds of lemon balm a week at the farmer's market. But it's like, I sold like 3 bunches for like $3 a piece, but I'm sort of conditioning our customers to begin to expect to see these herbs that, one, obviously you can tell them like, yeah, like you can steep it into a tea or, just sort of infuse it into water. But then you also have this opportunity to begin to educate them. And for some of them, maybe for the first time, really let them dip their toe into the water of herbalism. And so I'm hoping that we'll begin to see more of that sort of in this space, because I think like we talked about offline, as people are becoming very conscious of their health, and now that the internet has made it very accessible to be able to learn a lot of this stuff, you don't even have to know what a plant is. You can take a picture of a leaf and it'll say, all right, well, this is yarrow. And then, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps away. And then boom, you already know exactly how you can process it and you can use it and all of this sort of stuff. So I think we're at the early stages of a really big movement toward kind of seeing local herbalism again and seeing it sort of right there front and center with vegetables and kind of like pasture raised small scale livestock production, which is a big reason why I wanted to talk with you, because I think as there's folks who are listening who are, sort of maybe in the early stages of like, what do I want to do? What kind of a farm do I want to have? Do I want to do pasture raised egg layers? Do I want to do conventional market gardening vegetables? Do I want to do this or that, whatever? Like this isn't a third or fourth option that is extremely viable, and you can fill a niche that is probably not being filled in your local area, or it's not being filled to capacity that it could be.
I love what you're doing with the edible flowers. That's such a cool idea. That's an exciting way. I think, herbs and edible flowers, they really add that extra. It's like you've got your lettuce, your squash, your vegetables, but then you add in the flowers and now, wow, your booth looks amazing. You've got that extra. It's like a little bit of magic,
Mhm.
it draws people in. And it's a great way to kind of get a name for yourself with chefs too. I think that's a pretty cool thing. Like, oh, this guy does flowers, like what can we do with that? I think herbs kind of invite more exploration. Yeah.
Mhm. And I think we initially sort of went down this road with more of your conventional edible flowers,
Mhm.
things like, violas, pansies,
Mhm.
nasturtium, stuff like that. And now we've sort of ended up in this place where, yes, we're growing some of that. And that was sort of what got our foot in the door, like I said, with chefs or with, bartenders. And now we've moved into doing more of the actual medicinal herbs as culinary herbs in a sense.
Mhm.
So, like I sold, yeah, I think like 40 blossoms of calendula to a restaurant this week. And then I have, and within the last week, sold like 80 anise hyssop flowers and some other things. So now we're moving into not just the kind of conventional culinary flowers that people or chefs are used to working with, but now we're moving into more of the medicinal ones. And then you get an opportunity to educate them, and then they can educate their customers. And the cool thing is it's sometimes it's not like, oh, I have a particular use that I want to do this for. Like I asked a chef this week, it's like, well, what are you going to do with the calendula? He was like, I'm not really sure yet, but if I don't find a good use for it, like we'll just infuse it in vinegar and it'll be super
Mhm.
rad. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's really cool too to be able to work with people who like are just excited about some diversity and excited about new product that sort of is outside of just your standard like Salanova lettuce, baby root veg and so on and so forth. They can get these like super rad looking anise hyssop flowers, which if you guys don't know what they look like, you can go to my Instagram page and scroll back however far and you'll see these like Dr. Seuss looking purple flowers that just like hit you in the face with the most fragrant sort of anise licorice flavor, and really wonderful, like added to a salad or whatever. I'm not,
Yeah.
it
I
can be
do a
really easy
tea
for
blend
me
with
to,
them. That's really nice.
yeah, it can be really easy for me to go into like sales mode, like I'm at the farmer's market with people. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of really wonderful things that can be done with this. And a lot of times I feel like the culinary use for things get your foot in the door and then you have an opportunity to
Mhm.
do that.
Today's episode is brought to you by Modern Grower. Modern Grower is the go-to source for 100% organic, GMO-free microgreen seeds. Trusted by hundreds of growers for high quality and low prices. If you're growing microgreens, start saving at shop.moderngrower.co.